There's more and more people coming. You built this infrastructure for what? 5 million people, now we got 30 million people. There's no new water in California.
The price he pays for water is up more than 300% in the last 10 years, as demand goes up, but supply doesn't.
So through this grove, my monthly water bill during the summer is somewhere between $18,000 and $25,000.
And 10 years ago it was?
$5,000 or $6,000.
Yet the price he gets paid for his avocados has barely budged.
It seems to me at some point that the price of water could threaten your existence.
Well, it does now.
He's done everything possible to reduce his water usage.
The dripper.
So this is a dripper here.
Right here.
Including irrigation that lets out only a drop at a time.
We are barely putting enough water on these trees. We are, very scientific about it. We got meters, we got computers, we got weather stations.
Hundreds of his competitors have already given up.
Every time you see a new subdivision or new houses going in, you got to think, wow, where'd that water come from? Nobody drilled a new well for that. Had to come from someplace. It's coming from our industry.
Agriculture consumes 80% of the world's fresh water. It always has. But across the globe, population growth, particularly in urban areas, and the expansion of water-intensive industries have brought us to a tipping point. From the Middle East to China to Latin America and Africa, a battle is waging over water supplies. Making matters worse, drought. In the U.S., it's lasted an unprecedented 11 years so far.
And it has been a steady, brutal decline. There was zero probability that a drought of this magnitude would occur.
But it has. Lake Mead, the reservoir created by the Hoover Dam and designed to hold surplus water from the Colorado, is now only 40% full. The top of this bright white ring is where the water line used to be. That's a drop of 130 feet. If it comes down just another 15 feet, the western U.S. faces a shortage which would threaten water supplies for farmers like Al and cities like Las Vegas. The entire state of Nevada gets a meager 2% of the water which states are allowed to take from the Colorado. So the risk of scarcity isn't one that its largest city is taking lightly. Las Vegas is pushing conservation in tough ways, including with a new kind of police force. Water investigators like Ray Guerra.
We've got one right here in front of us.
He's part of a team that patrols the city's lawns, looking for broken sprinkler heads and water running down the street.
Once it leaves your front yard, then you're technically in violation.
The fines start at $80 and go up from there, though they don't always work.
And there was one gentleman that got 29 fees. It was costing him, I believe, $640 every time we were going out, $640. It wasn't until his wife became aware of the fees that she called to inquire, what's this large fee that's on my water bill? It says water waste. And once we explained it to her, she said, don't worry, it's done. It won't run again.
When it comes to urban use in Nevada, the biggest consumers of water are not the casinos, but homeowners' lawns.
Our residents come from another part of the country where they're used to having a lot of grass and they get a lot more rainfall. Last year we only had 1.5 inches of rain. And so it really puts a strain on the water system.
Las Vegas goes as far as paying people to remove grass from their landscaping, and they get a lower water bill to boot.
At least 50%.
Other cities are scrambling as well, spending billions on infrastructure projects to head off a crisis.
Why are you making this dam bigger?
We're making it bigger to increase water storage in San Diego County. Not only
Maureen Stapleton is the San Diego County Water Authority General Manager.
San Diego County is at the end of the pipe. Nearly 80% of our water comes from either the Colorado River or the Bay Delta in the Sacramento region. We're hundreds of miles away from our water sources.
The bigger reservoir, along with plans to desalinate seawater from San Diego's famous coastline, are all part of her plan to diversify the county's water sources.
What we're doing is, in fact, trying to move off of imported water supply and on to local supply development.
It's like the United States with imported oil.
Somewhat, absolutely. Because we're at the end of the pipe, we really need to be self-reliant.
Astoundingly, 25% of San Diego's water is imported from farmers who live roughly 150 miles away. Why? Because the farmers of Southern California's Imperial Valley have direct access to the Colorado River, and they also have history on their side. a history that says they have the rights to 20% of the river, and it's a huge benefit to farmers like Ralph Strom.
This is our family farm. We've been here for 3 generations.
Because Strom's ancestors put the water to use first, they have priority. They see it as critical to their family's legacy and survival.
So there would be no agriculture here and no production of any sort in the Imperial Valley, and the population would be devastated if we didn't have that water that we have from the Colorado River.
Those historical rights to the river give them access to some of the cheapest water in the country, allowing them to grow crops that are water intensive, like alfalfa, which is most commonly turned into hay.
You know, if you're an urban interest, you're thinking, what are they growing hay for? If you're an ag interest, you're going, what are they growing grass for and have swimming pools? And that's kind of the classic rub between the two.
Though despite the conventional wisdom that we're in trouble here in the U.S., not everyone sees it that way.
There's no crisis.
Bruce Babbitt, Secretary of the Interior under President Bill Clinton.
If you add the numbers up nationwide, the answer is there's no crisis. There's a crisis of infrastructure, of pricing and allocation, but we can solve those issues.
But in terms of quantity, there's enough.
There is enough water in the United States. Yes, water's a renewable resource. We need to understand that it doesn't go away. It keeps coming down from up there and recycling, and it's always there, and there's enough if we use it well and thoughtfully.
But we don't use it thoughtfully, he says, because for too long, water has been nearly free in America, courtesy of our government and the U.S. taxpayer.
Lots of government money, huge infrastructure. You all come and get it. Use as much as you want. It doesn't cost anything. You know, make your yard look like northern Minnesota, even if you live in Nevada.
Remember Al Stanley's water bill of $20,000 a month? That still only works out to less than a penny a gallon. He knows it's a relative bargain.
Basically, my water is free. It's what I'm paying for is the cost to get it here.
His colleagues at the Imperial Valley pay even less for water, and as a result have done far less when it comes to conservation.
And if you go out and look at the way it's used, it's not efficiently used. That agriculture could exist on, you know, as much as a third or a half of the water that's actually used.
Some contend more accurate pricing of water would solve nearly everything. Farmers would conserve more, there would be fewer lawns in the desert, and people would think a whole lot more about leaving that water running. Others counter that pricing water is only part of the battle. What they do agree on, though, is the need for change.
A lot of America's future ability to have the lifestyle, the quality of life, and all the wonderful things that we've enjoyed over the last several hundred years really rides on us starting to really pay attention to this issue.